Friday, the final day of the week. These are the voyages of the program Unsportsmanlike Conduct. Its ongoing mission to explore strange new movies, to seek out new bits and new edifications, to boldly go where no radio program has gone before. Oh, Kent's Movie Club. It's El Kent's Movie Club. El Kent's Movie Club. It's El Kent's Movie Club.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, emanating from the ballpark. And there's the video proof right there. There's where we are. We are at TD Ameritrade Park today for the Creighton-Villanova game. So, Kent, welcome virtually to the ballpark. It's our first time here in almost 2 years.
2 years?
Yeah, because last year I only did one game here. So normally if I do a game here on Friday, we do the show from here.
Or a Tuesday.
And
when non-conference
we didn't have any
allowed.
last year because the season got shut off. And so it's been almost 2 years since May since we've been here at the ballpark.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else in that ballpark?
Well, yeah, Creighton's out on the field.
You got the players and the coaches.
Can you see Creighton warming up down there?
No spectators.
Not yet. I mean, the game hasn't started yet.
Oh, but they'll let people will be able to come in?
Yes, there will be people in, and now you have to look at
close-up of John. Hi, John.
There, that's better. There we go.
Hey, Kent.
Hey.
Well, perfect place to do a movie club about Godzilla versus Kong. First thing, before we even really get into the movie, I don't know if it was just me, maybe it's just me going through a pandemic, but did any of the rest of you go through this, especially the last fight scene where they basically take out all of Hong Kong?
Destroyed Hong Kong, yeah.
Did you think that, okay, yeah, this is all happening. How many millions of people have been crushed and killed in all of this carnage?
John, it was one of the first things I thought of as that was unfolding. And the one thing that I thought was, at least it's not a superhero movie where, like, Superman is battling the bad guy, but he's just running through all the walls. It's like, Superman, you're killing lives, and you are costing billions, maybe trillions of dollars to the local economy. So, that was hilarious. Just like, let's just crash into literally every building in Hong Kong.
And, of course, the other thing that goes along with that is they don't show that carnage, right? Because they want a PG-13 movie, and if you showed people getting blown into bits or whatever, it would become R.
Yeah. The only time you ever see anything like that is, I think back to like Jurassic Park, where, the sniveling dude gets eaten off the toilet.
Yeah.
You only see in these monster movies, these giant monster movies, you only see like human death when it's somebody everyone wants to see die on screen.
Exactly.
And there's no blood. They just get eaten.
No blood. Yeah.
Smushed with a giant foot. Something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I defy one of you to describe the plot of this movie.
Ken, I was going to ask you what the plot is of this movie. And it's funny, real quick, I guess, before look, in the end, they're just fighting each other. But I didn't realize, and I guess I should have put two and two together, because I've never really gotten into the Godzilla or the Kong movies over the years. But when they first came out, they were allegories for, like, Godzilla, nuclear war, and the problems that come with that. And then with Kong, going in and taking somebody out of their own habitat. And so it's like the origins of these movies, I think, were saying something about us as a society. And I guess this probably says something about us as a society as well, where it's just, hey, let's battle and destroy a city with these two big monsters.
Well, and that's, you're exactly on it. What they've done is they've taken these two monsters and put them in this, quote, monsterverse, right?
Yeah.
Legendary films. This is the fourth movie? So they've really beaten any of what you were talking about, meaning or allegory or whatever out of it. Because those first Godzilla movies I don't know if you've ever watched any of those old Japanese Godzilla movies.
Oh, yeah.
He's made out of foam rubber to start with, right?
Mhm.
But they were a reaction to the nuclear, to Hiroshima and Nagasaki and the atomic age and all of that. And now he's just a big lizard, with these weird powers to blast through things, right?
Yeah.
And Kong, they anthropomorphized Kong early on, right? They give him these human qualities.
Yes.
Right?
Sign language.
And which, by the way, I happen to live with somebody who is an interpreter for a living and teaches sign language at college.
Oh, really?
Yes. And she got a good laugh out of this. The little girl is actually a deaf actress.
Okay.
So she's deaf and she's very good.
Yeah.
The most any of the gorillas that have learned, well, I think mostly one gorilla named Coco learned enough sign language that they say she was at about the level of a 3-year-old. So it's not like gorillas can learn sign language and communicate like they were communicating.
Yeah. It's a good point because now, as always, I mean, we're talking about, 800-foot tall monsters. So you're suspending some disbelief anyway.
Oh, yeah.
But you're right. And I guess to give the folks, just the quick plot.
I'm ready. I'm waiting, man. Let's go.
So Godzilla, who apparently, now I haven't seen the other movies, the other modernized movies, because
I saw the Bryan Cranston Godzilla, but that, if I remember right, Kent, that's a different. It's a different
one, right? Bunch. Yes.
Yeah.
Right, but isn't this is a sequel, right?
This is the fourth movie in this legendary series.
Right.
The King Kong Skull Island, and I think one that was just called Godzilla, and then the last Godzilla movie, I don't remember the title, but it was what's that?
He battled all the monsters. It was
and he became
monsters or something like that.
Yeah, and he became kind of the good guy.
Right. He becomes a good guy. Well, in this movie, he's now turned heel again. And he destroys was it Pensacola? There's a
Pensacola, Florida. Yeah,
the industrial base, because there's always an industrial concept to all of these, where there's some big businessman who's creating things, and so you've got the big industrialist, and Godzilla comes, takes out one of their factories, and people are wondering, well, why is Godzilla upset? And now, they need to get Kong, who's been, captive on Virtual Skull Island or whatever the place is. And the goal is this industrialist needs to find a power source that is only available in the original home of these titans, these monsters.
Which is at the center of the earth. There is no
Hollow
at the center of the earth. Hollow Earth.
Hollow
Earth. That's a nice concept.
So the goal is they've got to, these professors have to jump into this specialized, craft,
gravity and
gravity, blah, 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 and go find this power source so that this industrialist can have this power source to help defeat Godzilla. Well, as it turns out, he wants the power source because he has created
Mecha Godzilla.
Mecha Godzilla. He's created his own Mecha Godzilla,
which is a robot.
Right. And the power source is supposed to fuel this Mecha Godzilla. And as it turns out, the industrialist has been the bad guy all along.
Yeah.
And eventually what we get, after we get an initial fight scene between King Kong and Godzilla, what we get is a triple threat match, destroying all of Hong Kong, killing millions and millions and millions of people. We've got a triple threat match between Mecha Godzilla, Godzilla, and Kong. And there's my plot synopsis.
You've done very well. And except it ends with kind of a bromance.
Mm-hmm.
And we won't give that away, but it ends with kind of a bromance.
It's as dumb as it sounds. And look, I think that we're probably coming across that like we hated it. I didn't hate it. It's a stupid movie, But I mean, I don't think I'll watch it again. But it wasn't
No.
that long. You know, I this would have been a whole lot more fun in the theaters. But I'm not going to spend $10 to go watch this movie. So I was happy to see it for free on HBO Max.
What I will tell you is, I'd actually watched it on HBO Max a week ago or whatever it was, and so I wandered into the end of a screening at the local movie theater a block down the street from the paper, where they'll let me in and do stuff like that, and it was much more fun on the big screen. And this was 4 or 5, whatever time they start the afternoon screenings now. And so there was nobody in there, me and 2 other people in there. And I found it way more entertaining on the big screen than I did, at home, in part because the action is so much better and more fun. You don't think about how stupid what you're watching really is.
Right. And listen, I guess if there's one thing, you're never going to be able to make these movies have a deep-rooted plot or great human character development or any of that type of stuff. That's just not why these movies are made, whether it's the original Godzilla movies, the original, I should say the original King Kong movies at least had some of that.
And so did the Peter Jackson remake.
And the Peter Jackson remake.
Whatever that was, 2005, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, there was a human nature. But once you get, to me, it's like once you get all the superheroes together in the Royal Rumble, the Avenger movies and stuff like that, you kind of lose me. But even still, I think one thing that would have made this movie better, and I know why they have the human characters, because you try to bring the human element. There's a sidebar story that features the daughter of one of the professors and a guy who hosts a podcast who's trying to find all these conspiracy theories about why this industrial company is doing all these weird things.
And he was pretty funny.
I like him. He's on the TV show Atlanta. He's great on that show.
He was, but the problem was everything they did, they rushed through so much.
They did.
Yeah.
Like in one moment, they're going through the wreckage of the laboratory in one place, and the next minute they're halfway around the world in Hong Kong. I mean, I realize that we have pretty fast travel these days, but it just kind of threw me off. The one actor outside of Kyle Chandler, of course, the coach from Friday Night Lights that you'll recognize, is Millie Bobby Brown, who, if you watched Stranger Things, she plays the 11 character. I don't know. Have you ever seen Stranger Things, Kent?
I have not.
It's a great series. I think you'd love it because it's set back in the 80s and it's very, it's monster-esque.
Stephen King type
stuff. It's really good. Anyway, she plays like the central female lead in that show. And so that's one of the actresses that is in the film. But I thought that, I know there was some humor in there, but I don't know. It was so rushed through that it was losing me at times.
And the deaf actress, the little girl, was in the horror movie a couple years ago about Don't Make a Sound or whatever that was called.
Yeah.
She was the daughter in that taught her family to sign so they could communicate and not stir up the monsters. And she's a pretty good she's been in a couple other movies. So I recognized her, but that's only because I watched way too many movies.
Yeah, it's funny, Kent. One of my takeaways from this is John just kind of ran through some of the characters, was like, I feel like we're about to enter this era where podcasts are kind of like a plot driver, like especially this one. I thought that it worked really well where you have this podcast host who it is into the conspiracy type lane, which obviously is a big part of American culture right now. And so I kind of watched it thinking, I wonder what this means now moving forward for movies as podcasts and in particular, like narrative driven storylines like that become, a plot device that can be used in these movies. Just like I imagine, 50 years ago or whatever, 60, 70 years ago when television first started becoming a thing, how that could become a plot device in a movie.
And the same thing happened actually in the 80s with computers.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And then in the 90s, early 2000s with the cell phone, with the mobile phone. Every step along the way, they've been able to incorporate these things. it'll be interesting. I hadn't thought of that, but that's an interesting point, because then you're taking one narrative and shoving it inside another one.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you go down that road, Kent, the things can look very dated.
Yes, quickly.
Like I think the best example is the rom-com You've Got Mail with Meg Ryan and Tom
Hanks.
Hey Noel, baby.
Yeah.
I mean,
You've Got Mail.
In the moment, it worked.
Yeah.
But to watch it 20 years or 25 years later, it feels very dated.
Yeah. If I get, and this is no exaggeration, I get 200 emails a day from, if that thing went off saying you got mail, it'd just be going off constantly.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing, too, you want to talk about weird things that have aged poorly from that movie. Now, no one would be supporting the big box store. They'd be like, well, you got to support local. Buy local. Support Meg Ryan's restaurant or bookstore. Don't go to the
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that might be interesting about this, Ken, and I know we're slowly getting to a point where we're going to get the big budget action films like this one more readily available in theaters. This one's obviously in theaters, but I think what is interesting is to look at where the box office is so far. Now, around the world, it's picked up over $230 million. Now, so far in the United States, only $48 million. If this were a normal year, I'm sure it'd
be over 100, yeah.
Well over 100 million by now. It's been the most watched premiere that HBO Max has had. They've had the Wonder Woman movie. We had the Denzel Washington movie. These first-time premieres on HBO Max. This one has actually had the most views so far of any of those. It is kind of an interesting test case for how this new era of debuting new releases on these streaming services might be received. And in the case of this, obviously, these are big mega budget films that need to make a lot of money. And this one, according to, I'm just looking at Wiki, they believe they need at least $330 million to break even. They haven't gotten there yet. And so I'm just curious what you think, what this might mean for other big budget films using this kind of a platform moving forward.
Well, two things. One, the Warner's people are saying that it is done even better overseas than you're looking at on those figures that are on Wikipedia, and that it has made money at this point.
Okay.
And so whether that's true or not, Warner Brothers would also be happy to tell you a story, to make it better than it is. But I think what this is showing you in part is people are starting to go back to the theaters for this kind of a movie. They're not going to go to the theater and see Nomadland or something like that. Right. But they will go for the ones that it's like a big movie you want to see on the big screen. But it's going to, what do I want to say? It's going to be a few weeks or months before enough people have enough confidence to go back and turn one of these into the kind of box office movie that we would have expected. This wasn't going to be a $400 million American box office movie.
No.
It was $100 million special would be my guess, in that range, if it had been released regularly. And then you add in the 300 or 400 internationally, and you've made $150, $200 million. Well, they're not going to make that, but they're not going to lose anything. And I think that makes Warner happy, right? Because it's driven people to the HBO Max. And that was part of the intent of these. But I think you're going to see more of this. I don't think it's going to end until probably, my guess is, and this is just a guess, that you'll see the Christmas movies released in theaters only.
Okay.
All right.
Well, that is Godzilla versus Kong. It's still streaming now. I think it's got, I don't remember when it was released. It might have another week, maybe 2
One more week or 2 weeks. Also, we should say the cinematography and the effects in that movie are great.
They are really good.
Yeah, it is.
They're really good.
1960s Godzilla from Japan.
No, this is really good. So it's big and stupid, but it's also kind of fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
Turn off your brain and enjoy it.
Absolutely, which is why Stibbs wanted it. And, of course, Stibbs isn't here today to enjoy the movie he requested that I pick.
Yeah, and you know what? He also sent me a movie because I asked him, hey, what's your pick? He sent me a movie that's not available for streaming anymore. You have to buy it. So Stibbs screwed up in a million different parts. So I decided to look around. I found
You're going to pinch it. All right.
I heard about this movie, Kent, a few years ago. It's been almost 3 years, I believe, since it was released. It is available on Amazon Prime. It is a Jonah Hill directed movie about like kids skateboarders in the 90s. That's not their profession. It's just kids who skateboard. It's called Mid-90s. It's only like an hour and a half. It's available on Amazon Prime. I just tweeted out the link. It's available on Prime for 9 more days. So it's going to be perfect. We can watch it right before it leaves Amazon. Mid-90s. I believe this was the first Jonah Hill movie or the first movie that Jonah Hill directed.
I think you're right on that. And it's actually, I found it's a very interesting little movie. I'm not going to say it's a great picture, but it when the thing that I most recall is I thought, hey, he could be a good director.
All right.
That was my first takeaway from it.
We'll check it out next week.
Perfect.
Mid-90s streaming now on Amazon Prime. All right, Kent. Well, enjoy the weekend. It's clouding up right now here in Omaha.
Yeah, annoying.
But I think it's supposed to be sunny for the rest of the weekend after tonight. So get out.
I'll be inside watching the Masters anyway and getting some lessons on how to putt with a 3-wood.
I think we're all getting those lessons right now.
I want to see more of it.
I know, me too. I think he's almost done, though, if he's not done.
He was on 16, so he has 2 holes left, and I can't imagine that he won't drop a shot on one of those. I mean, those greens are unbelievable.
Yes.
Seriously.
And especially as anal as these golfers are and, feeling comfortable and all this other stuff, it just has to feel very foreign to hold a 3-wood in your hands and try to use it the same way you would use a putter.
Yeah, I would agree. I once, years ago, was on a junket at Disney in Florida at Disney World, and that was when they still played the tournament there. There was a Disney tournament. I don't think they play it anymore. And we had a day off. We watched a movie one day off, and then do a bunch of interviews the next day. It was for the Little Mermaid was what the movie was for. And they said, what do you want to do on your day off? They'd give you a pass for the parks or whatever. And I'm like, man, I want to play golf. It's November. It's cold in Nebraska. I want to play golf. And they said, okay, but the golf courses they have several, were all booked up except the one they closed to host the tournament the next week. Right. And so I go over and they send me out in a cart with 24 balls, said, if you hit it in anywhere off the fairway, leave it. There are alligators out there.
Oh my gosh.
And I was the only person on that golf course, and playing on those greens that are set up for those guys is like putting on your driveway. I mean, the ball does not stop. It just zoom.
Well, I think I don't remember whose idea it is or, who I saw from first, but there's like an idea out there that every professional tournament should just have like a normal golfer out there, like a scratch golfer, one of us, just to show how difficult every single course is so we can imagine it just a little bit better. Because I think a lot of us probably have scratch golfers in our lives. And so, man, those golfers are really good. I would love to see that for every tournament just to see how bad that they would perform.
All I need to tell you is I made it under 100 on the first 9, but not much beyond.
Oh, my gosh.
To me, the more interesting story is, did you see a gator?
I did not see a gator. But I did lose probably half of the balls because,
I'm not dredging into the weeds there to find this golf ball. All right, Cam, we'll have a great weekend. Thanks, and we'll talk to you next week.
See you next week.
Later,
There he
Kent.
is, Kent Wolgamott of the Lincoln Journal-Star Movie Club. Mid-90s, our selection streaming now on Amazon Prime. This hour of our St. Jude Radiothon is brought to you by El Dorado Restaurant, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Radiothon. El Dorado Restaurant, 24th and Q Street in South Omaha, is home of the seafood platter. And if you're craving authentic Mexican cuisine, come enjoy their tasty, sizzling fajitas, carne asada tacos, seafood, shrimp cocktails, and more. And they do deliver. Check out their menu online, ElDoradoMexRest.com. That's short for El Dorado Mexican Restaurant, 24th and Q in South Omaha. And call now and be a partner in hope in our St. Jude Radiothon, 800-330-9727. They are taking batting practice. You want to see batting practice?
Oh, look at that.
There it is. There's batting practice going on right now at TD Ameritrade Park. We'll sign off of Stibbs TV, but be back. One Beer Friday is closing in, and we'll get you a Masters update on 1620 The Zone.